Good morning, Stampers. Welcome to Technique Tuesday. Today's technique, we are going to be using coffee filters to create a really fun background. So we're just going to kind of learn this together. I haven't done any mock-ups or anything like that, so we're just going to kind of go about it together. So obviously you need some coffee filters, and I'm also using the new watercolor pigment crystals. Wow, say that 3 times fast. These are Stampin' Up's crystals, and what I love about them is not only the packaging is amazing, but the colors are going to coordinate with our other Stampin' Up products. Each it comes in 6 different colors. We've got Bermuda Bay, Granny Apple Green, Mango Melody, Daffodil Delight, Melon Mambo, and Gorgeous Grape. I've kind of paired these off just to, because I think that's how I want to do my backgrounds. Now, each of these crystals, what's really neat, if you've done brush hook crystals before, you know that you got to stick a pin in it and do all that stuff. Stampin' Up's taking the work out of that. You take the lid off, and it's got a really neat little shaker lid. You pop it open, and there's your shaker. Seals right back up. Love it. These pigment crystals are going to last you a long time. A little bit goes a really long way. You'll see when we start using them. So we also need a spritz bottle of water. And now when I saw this technique online, they, for obvious reasons, tell you to use photo paper versus glossy cardstock. The reason I'm figuring is photo paper takes color in a different way than a glossy cardstock would. You'll see when we start doing this that the colors are going to absorb right away and create a different type of design. I did bring here somewhere a little piece. I want to try it on watercolor paper too. I haven't, like I said, I haven't tried this technique. We're going to do it together. So we're going to try a couple different ways to do it. So let's just jump in. And I'm going to take a piece of the photo paper, and you can just, this one's just my HB photo paper I have. And I've cut a piece to play with. So let's set this here. I am going to use a glove because I can tell you right now, you're probably going to get inky. I mean, I like getting inky, but let's start out clean. We'll just try. So we're going to take our coffee filter, flatten it out. So the first way I saw is you just pick your color. Let's go with the green and blue to start. So we're going to start with the Bermuda Bay and the Granny Apple Green. So what we want to do, so we're just going to sprinkle some of these. Wow, it's hard to work with gloves. I'm not used to doing it. I'm used to being covered in ink. So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of this on there. Now remember, I told you these pigment crystals are very concentrated. So a little bit goes a long way, and it's better to start out with a little less than a little more. Now the Granny Apple Green, if you look at it, the powder is actually orange. But what's really fun is you'll see as soon as water hits it, it's a different color, or it turns to the green. It's pretty amazing. When I first got it, I'm like, oh no, they sent me the wrong packaging, but they didn't. Of course they didn't. So let's spritz this with some water, and see how that orange turns to green? And we're going to activate those crystals. There we go. Look at that. How pretty is that? Now we're going to take our photo paper. We're going to pick this up. I guess I should have used 2 gloves. And we're just going to lay it over our photo paper. Look at that. Just tap it down where you have a little bit darker crystals. It's going to activate right away. It's okay to have little folds in there because that's just going to add some texture to your image. Make sure my whole paper's covered. Let's take it off. Oh, look at that. Oh, isn't that pretty? Oh, loving it. Now I thought about crumpling this up and covering up some of those white, but I think I almost like it like that. Now one coffee filter is going to go a long way. So we're going to grab another piece of photo paper here. I'm going to pick up some of my, and I'm using a non-stick mat here. For my non-stick, I use my old oven liners. So whenever I change out my oven liner, I take my old one and I use it in my craft room. Works great. So let's take another piece of photo paper. We're going to use this same coffee filter. And I'm going to lay it down on there. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of water to activate those crystals again. And see how that turns out. Tap it on there. Oh, look at that. Then you can take, if you don't want those little white marks, take your coffee filter, crumple it up, because when you crumple it, it's going to add designs. Pick up some of your ink that's on your mat here and just dab your project. Look at that. Fills it right in, adds some more texture and bubbles. Oh, look at that. I really like that. Let me see if I can pick this up. I'm just going to take a piece of paper towel and just tap it over it to pick up any loose water. I'll do that on the other one also. Let me see if I can. It's got bubbles. It's got. And at the end of this video, in the post, I will put the cards I make from these backgrounds in here. I'm thinking I'll probably just do some silhouette images, or you can just stamp a greeting right on there. I would suggest using your StazOn to stamp onto photo paper. It dries easier and you get a nice clean image. So let's set that aside and let's try a new way. Clean this up a little. Now keep these old coffee filters, lay them out, let them dry, and you can put them over a piece of cardstock as a textured background. So I'm going to save these. I'm just going to set it aside here. So I'm going to save those coffee filters and use them for another project. Now I want to try, so I'm going to bring in another piece of watercolor paper. Now if you watched last week's technique, I did die cut masking. I think that'll work on this. We're going to try it. You can use stencils or this die cut. So what I did, and we're going to see if it works, is I die cut the flourish from, oh, I just lost the name. Flourishing Phrases set, the coordinating die. So I've put that on masking. I've cut it with masking paper, which you'll see on last week's tutorial. Now I'm going to peel off the background. I had to take off my glove to do that. So we're going to peel off the background and I'm going to stick it right on this photo paper. And we're going to see if that masks it and if we can do a design with it. So let's try a couple different colors. I'm going to close these up. Let's do, let's go ahead and do we're going to do the Mango Melody and the Daffodil Delight. I'm going to move that aside. And I think what I want to do is just spritz this enough for it to hold the colors. So let's put a little bit of Mango Melody in there. And some Daffodil Delight. And you see, these are coming out, well, the orange obviously comes out the same as Mango Melody, but even the yellow is an orange powder. And as soon as the water hits it, it's a different color. And just for a little touch of something, something, I'm going to grab a little bit of this Granny Apple Green and just add a couple little spritzes of that in there. Set that aside. And I think what I'm going to do this time, before I wet it, so I'm going to bring in my photo paper. And let's see how this works. Activating it once it's already on to your project. Hopefully you guys are seeing this okay. So let's see what it does. So let's activate it. Oh, and I don't have my glove on. Let me put my glove on. And we're going to push it down on our paper here. I'm going to activate it a little bit more. I'm just tapping it down. And let's see what we came out with. All right. Okay, I've got some blank spots where my stencil was. So I'm going to crumple up and just get in there in between the little holes of the stencil. The coffee filter didn't lay down below the die cut. So let's do that. Let's get in there. Get all those little areas. Our little white spots. Now I'm going to take a paper towel again, dab off the wet, and let's see if our stencil works. Let me grab a pair of tweezers, and let's see if our stencil worked this way. So let's pull it up. Okay, it didn't really work because the stencil paper disintegrated. It was too wet. So now we know the masking paper won't work for this because it dissolves. I mean, it left a little bit of a design, but as you see, the masking paper doesn't do well wet. I mean, we're still going to have a little bit of a design there. But, okay, that didn't work. That's okay. We'll learn it together, gang. Yeah, that didn't work. So, let's try it a different way. Let's set that aside. I can still use parts of this as a background, or even with it like this, or let's see, go over it with our wet coffee filter. Yeah, that one's a flop, I'm going to say. So we're going to set that aside. Set the coffee filter aside. Now let's bring in, let's clean up our little space here a little bit. Let's try it with an actual stencil. So let's lay that down. I'm going to bring in another coffee filter. I think I'm going to lay this stencil right on here. Let's do it in, let's stick with the Mango Melody and see what we get. Let me wet this down. That's the fun thing about trying different techniques. Just try different things. Works, it works. Doesn't? Well, we move on and we try something new. So let's add some Mango Melody in there. A little bit of Daffodil Delight. And I still want a couple little green, some Granny Apple Green in there, just to add some accent. Okay, let's wet it down. Activate our crystals. Now, the wetter you get it, the more they're going to blend. So if you want darker highlights where those crystals are, you don't have to wet it as much. So we're going to pick up our coffee filter and let's lay it right over that stencil. Let's see what happens with this. So I'm just lightly pressing it into the stencil. Because remember when we laid it on the other, the coffee filter is going to kind of fall in to your stencil area. I'm sure if you die cut something, maybe in a, I wouldn't even know what to die cut it, that it wouldn't dissolve when it got wet. So I'll work on that. Maybe I'll come up with something. So I'm going to activate this just a little bit more so it'll blend. Tap it in there to our stencil. Let's see what we came out with. I'm going to lift the stencil and the coffee filter, and I flopped. Okay, that's all right. You know what? Add the stencil back. I don't think I pressed hard enough on it to get it through the stencil. Work in progress. I'm going to wet it, activate it, and press it into my stencil. Normally I do all these techniques and I try them ahead of time. Today I decided we're just going to learn it together. So here we go. We're learning it together. So let's pick this up. There we go. I didn't have it wet enough. Okay, that was obviously the issue. Because now I can see it's gone through the stencil. I'm going to dab off some of the wet. And now let's lift our stencil and see what we got. Yeah, I think if I would have done that right the very first time, that would have showed up even better. But you can see the stencil design in there, and it adds a really nice touch. I really like that. I think we need to try it again though, but I really like that. That's a really neat and colorful background with a little bit of the stencil. You know, any stencils you have, flowers, whatever. This one is just a geometric design. And dab off the water there. Let's try one more. And I'm going to try it again with the stencil. I know there's got to be a way for that stencil to show up just a little bit better. So let's try it by laying our stencil on. I'm not covering the whole piece. So let's lay our stencil on there. Grab a coffee filter. And I'm just going to lay it right over there. Let's try it one more time. Because my colors got just a little muddy on that one. So I'm going to moisten this just a little to hold it down. There we go. Now it's held down over our stencil. And let's see. We got a little mango melody here. Some daffodil delight. And I still want to add just a touch of the granny apple green in there. So let's add just a couple spots of that. There we go. Now let's wet it and see what we come up with. Activate those crystals. Your photo paper takes color right away, so that might be why they say do it with photo paper. I'm going to try it with a piece of watercolor paper here for our last try and see what happens there. Let me see how this one turned out. I'm just pressing it into the stencil. And I'll almost bet if you added concentrate, let's try. Let's add just a couple little dark spritz here and see how it activates onto our, there you go. So yeah, you can add darker and lighter highlights to it. Okay, let's see what we came up with. Let's pick it up. It still showed a little bit. I think when you get it a little too wet, your colors will bleed out too much. So if we took our crumpled piece and just added some highlights, or you could probably add them directly to your cardstock. Let's see what it does. Let's add a couple sprinkles. Which one is this? I want the granny apple green. I really want green in this project. I don't know why. Maybe it's one of those days where you do green. Okay, now we've added the sprinkles directly to the photo paper. Let's see what it does. There you go. Oh, look at that. You can add some really neat accents to that. And the photo paper takes it right away. And grab a paper towel. There you go. Look at that. That's really pretty. We're going to add just a couple more little, I mean, you could, obviously it's mixed media, like any mixed media. You just play with it until you get the look you want. There we go. Look at that. I really like that. And a little green in this corner here. Lightly spritz it. Let it activate the crystals. There you go. Alright, we'll just take our paper towel, dab it off. And set it aside to dry. Okay, so out of this technique, let me clean this up a little bit. Your stencils will wipe right off, or go just run them under some tap water and it'll clean right up. This is what we came out with. I really like that one. That one's very pretty. But I'm going to say the very first one we did is going to be my all-time favorite. Now you can, like I said, you can stamp directly on these or put, even if you did one of your silhouette dies from the Friendly Silhouettes, cut out a silhouette, lay it on there, do a greeting. I will decorate these card panels I've made, and we'll see what it looks like. Oh, you know what? We were going to try a piece of watercolor paper just to see what it does. So let's try that. So here's a piece of watercolor paper. Let me find, what did I do with my coffee filter? Oh, there. Grab a coffee filter. I'm going to move that aside. I'm going to try some purple, some Melon Mambo and Gorgeous Grape on this one. Just lay it flat. Let's put some Melon Mambo on there. Even the Melon Mambo doesn't come out pink in the powder, but it will as soon as you activate it with water. The grape looks purple, the powder, but it also looks very intense just by the way it's sprinkling, so a little bit goes a long way. So let's see what this does. Let's get this wet. Yeah, I thought so. The Gorgeous Grape is a pretty strong one. So now we've activated that. Let's pick it up and just lay it over our watercolor paper. See what it does. Tap it in there. I really don't want to add any more water to this because I have a feeling it would make it muddy. You know, where you put too much color on something and it kind of makes it just a blurred mess. So let's see what that came out like. Oh, I didn't even get it all wet, so I guess we have to add water. The watercolor paper doesn't absorb it as well. I can tell you that right now. See there? So that's probably why they say don't use watercolor paper. It looks cool though, because we could actually just do our crumpled thing and do some crumpled accents into the blank spots. And you still come out with a pretty background. And using the crumple kind of gives you little designs. I don't know if you can see that on film. See where it's picking it up a little and moving it around. So I guess watercolor paper would work, but it's not as vibrant as doing it on the photo paper. So I will take and make some cards with all these little designs we made and put them in the blog post below. So this is called coffee filter backgrounds or coffee filter prints. So you're basically creating background prints using coffee filters and your pigment crystals. So I'm going to say, well, see, now that this one dried, the one we did the stencil, it does have some pretty designs in there. So I guess it's just play with it and see what you come up with. But so far, I'm going to say our very first two are my favorites. I like that marbled look. And don't forget, save your coffee filters, dry them out flat, and you can put them on cardstocks and use them as a textured colored background. Especially if you didn't wet them to the point they're just muddy. So this will have pretty accents. I would think if you had white coffee filters, it would probably look better. I didn't have any. I only have these brown things, all natural, something like that. So go ahead and play with it. Take out your pigment crystals and find yourself some photo paper or watercolor if you like it that way. But I would think if you're going to do watercolor, you can just do the sprinkles directly onto your watercolor paper. But the photo paper adds better designs. I mean, I like that. Look, it's got some bubbles in there and some light and dark spots. This is going to make a nice card. So here are the cards I made with the backgrounds. Here's our first one. Don't you just love it? This comes from the Friends Like You. Just stamped the palm trees in a greeting and matted it. It's nice and colorful. Second one, I took our shimmer laser cuts paper and overlaid it. Put some pearl embellishments and thanks from the well-written dies. There you go. That's nice and colorful. And the last one, the orange and green. These are from the Friends Like You silhouette dies and the greeting and a couple dragonflies. So there's just some ideas what to do with these backgrounds. I hope you enjoyed today's class. Happy stamping!